All right. Well, good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started with today's agent development training. Thank you for being here. If you have the ability to turn your cameras on, we would really rather see you than a black box. And so I always ask and promote that. In some of our roundtable discussions and sessions, I've asked both Sandra and Tyler, who are hosting those, to not allow people to stay on the call if they won't turn their cameras on. I think, hiding behind a black screen is not what we'd prefer for these types of sessions. I haven't kicked anybody out of ADT for that yet. So, but if you're able to turn your cameras on, we'd really appreciate that. So, a few just updates as we kind of get things started. First of all, I'm sorry to those of you who are in Michigan. I could not get the email out of my outbox, so I'm sorry it was a little bit delayed. We tried to wait on you for a little bit, so hopefully you got that email and were able to join us quickly. Today's session is going to be really focused on two core fundamental pieces of our sales process, which are our positioning statement or protection for life, and secondary to that, the fact-finding experience. And before we jump into that, though, I've got a couple of things that I just wanted to go over with you, just some quick announcements. First of all, I did send out an email this morning around our March Madness territory competition. I would tell you, you don't have to know anything about basketball to participate in this, okay? But over the next couple of weeks, the NCAA men's basketball tournament is happening. It actually starts, I think, the first game's at 12:15 on Thursday of this week. And so what we've done is we've set up a platform on CBS Sportsline where you can actually log in, set up a username and password if you haven't already. If you had one from last year or previous years, you can just use that one, and you can just go in and pick the bracket. And it's actually really simple. You don't have to write anything down. You just go in and select the teams that you want, and then there's obviously the championship game, and then you put in I think it's a final score on that championship game as kind of the tiebreaker. I will tell you, every year, people who know nothing about basketball win big money in this event. So I've actually set this up and I sent it out to you this morning. The first big thing is just to get registered. The second thing that will help you in this contest is to sell life insurance over the next 4 weeks. Um, some of you are very good at selling life insurance. Some of you don't know how to spell life insurance. But this is a contest that's designed to kind of promote that. And so what we're going to do is we're actually based on the picks that you and the teams that you pick, and as they win, you're going to get certain point number total for each time your teams win. I'm going to mute you, Sandra. And then alongside that, we've actually got it set up so that any life insurance applications that get approved and hit the agent production port or report during those 4 week time frames, there's actually additional point totals around those that will be added into the total. So I had sent this out this morning. I'd sent it both in an email and then it was an attachment. So here's the link that you need to click on to go in and set up your bracket. Your bracket has to be completed before Thursday, the 19th at 12:15 p.m. That first game starts then, and as soon as that starts, if you put your stuff in after that, you're out. It doesn't matter. We can't do anything after that. You got to have all your picks in before that. Um, and then how it works is as you pick those teams, any team that you pick that wins the first round, you get 1.4. Second round's 2, Sweet 16's 4, Elite Eight's 8. The final four, you get 16 points for each team that you select that gets into the final four, and then the championship is 32 points. And then in addition to the points that you tally for the correct selections in the tournament, you'll also score points for each life insurance application that is submitted during that time frame and actually shows up. And I say submitted, it's got to show up on that agent production report. So it's a matter of getting submitted and approved and showing up on the actual report. And so for each life insurance application, you get 3 additional points towards your final total for each one. And we're going to be looking at weeks 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. It's actually 5 weeks that we're going to look at, where if you have life insurance applications that hit during those weeks, 3 points for each one added to whatever your total is. And we'll keep a running tally so you guys will be able to kind of see this. You'll be able to see on CBS Sportsline where you're doing what you're doing from a bracket perspective. And then we'll set it up another tracker on the Google Drive so you can see how many life insurance applications are coming in. So the career agents on the team are going to split a $5,000 bucket of Lead Connect dollars amongst the top 10 finishers. So you can win, up to $1,000. And then the top three also have cash prizes associated with them. If you're a sub agent, an assistant, a sales assistant, you also have the opportunity to compete. It's going to be solely based on Your picks, though, it doesn't have anything to do with selling life insurance because most of you aren't licensed to do so. But there's going to be first place in the territory is going to get 300 cash, 200 cash, and 100 cash. So I'm going to fund these pieces. The sales leaders are going to fund these pieces over here as far as the cash is concerned. So it's a fun little contest that I hope you all choose to engage in. It kind of keeps you engaged in the games over the next couple of weeks as we, work our way into March Madness. I'm not a huge basketball fan myself, but I really enjoy this time of year and watching the tournament and, tracking a few teams that maybe I have some sort of vested interest in. So you can literally pick these teams based on the color of their jersey, their names, where they're from. It doesn't matter. Like there are going to be upsets that happen. You could even blindly pick and probably potentially win some money in this. So I just encourage you jump on there and make sure you get involved with that. Second thing I wanted to touch on. Many of you have now met with your sales leaders or your mentors in the business around going over your goals and game plan, your map of life, and beginning to use the performance tracker spreadsheet. I've had a handful of meetings here over the last couple of weeks. Thank you to those of you who have engaged and done that. If you haven't already done that, you need to get on it. I would encourage you, get that goals and game plan filled out. We sent that out a couple of weeks ago so you could begin working on it. Get your map of life set up. Figure out what hours you're going to be engaged in the business, and out of those hours, what time blocks are going to be phone time versus field time. And then start really diving into that performance tracker spreadsheet. And that's where you can, build out a really customized plan of what you're going to do, how many people you're going to get your information to, how many leads you want to have coming in, how many appointments you hope to run, how many phone dials you're going to be making, how many total points you want to, accumulate on a weekly basis. That is the tool that you can use to track whatever your plan is and how well you're executing against that plan. Um, I will tell you that people who shoot from their hip in this business typically don't see a lot of success. People who build a plan and then execute that plan do. And so I'm going to hold many of you highly accountable to this because candidly, we're looking for business owners who will do the right things to find success in the business. If you're a tier two, tier three, tier four agent, you probably have a good cadence. You've already done this. You've built out your goals and game plan. You're tracking things however you want to. But if you're tier one, you're not there yet. And we got to get you to that 50,000 FYCRs ASAP. And so the plan to get there is all really hinging on your map of life, your goals and game plan, and how you track yourself in that performance tracker spreadsheet. As I've had conversations with a lot of agents here over the last couple of weeks around this, the big thing that I will tell you that oftentimes people miss is number one, the goals that they set are not smart goals. Saying I want to do better in my business is not a smart goal. Saying I want to hit tier two status by this date and time, that's a smart goal. So you want to think through like the goals that you're setting and make sure that they're specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. That's the acronym of SMART. Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. So make sure that your goals are set around that. The second mistake that I'm seeing agents make is they build out this goals and game plan is that they set this goal, but then they build a bunch of activities that they're going to do, but the activities that they're going to do are not going to get them to that goal. And so their plan is not in alignment with where they're trying to get to. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I can do for you and your sales leader can do for you is to look at your plan and say, is this going to be an exercise in futility? Or is the plan that you built, the activities that you're going to engage in, the time you're going to spend in the business, is that going to help you get to tier two status by whatever date you've actually chosen? I had an agent I met with yesterday who had an initial goal of getting to tier two by August of 2026, which is very doable. But we started backing into the amount of production that needs to be done on a weekly basis between now and August. And it was a massive amount of business, more than that agent had ever written previously. And so I'm like, is this realistic to average this amount weekly? And he said, probably not. So we made some adjustments. We changed some things. We put that timeline a little bit further out so that it was like reasonable for him to get there in the time that he'd set out. So those are all things I think you've got to think through. If you think that there's no value in building a plan, I would challenge you hard. As your business partner, I would tell you, got to have a plan on what you're going to do, and then you got to start executing that plan to design. So definitely worth diving in on that. Last thing I'm going to touch on is I'm going to record a video, hopefully later today, around the national call that happened last week and just some additional clarity. And I'm going to try to send that out. Those of you that were in my Indiana sales team meeting last week, you got a glimpse of maybe some of the things that are happening behind the scenes or the things that were announced last week that people didn't fully understand. there's some big announcements, especially for tier three, tier four sales leaders on how you can put more money into Lead Connect. You can pull more money out. Some really, really cool things that the company is doing and some additional currencies that they're adding for the top agents in the organization. So I want to make sure you guys understand that. So I'm going to record a video. I'm going to try to keep it short and sweet, but I am going to send that out hopefully in the next 24 hours. And I just encourage you guys to dive in and watch that and make sure you understand it and ask questions if you have questions. So with that, we're going to jump into today's content, which is really around our positioning statement or the protection for life and the fact-finding experience. One thing I'll mention before we turn things over to Cav is that I do believe that this can be done two ways. And I think these two can be flip-flopped depending on how you want to build out your sales process. Some agents start with the fact-finding experience and then move into their positioning statement or their protection for life, and then move into delivering the solution. Those are the three core components of a good sales presentation. Other people start off with the positioning statement and then move into the fact finding and then move into delivering the solution. I don't think one is right or wrong. You'll probably hear some pros and cons of both ways. You'll hear how Steve does it today. I would also encourage you that the YouTube channel, the territory YouTube channel that we have out there, there's an entire playlist on there, which is all of the sales leaders in our territory recording their protection for life presentation and giving it. So if you don't even know where to start with the positioning statement, I think that's a really good place to start to watch some of our top agents doing their positioning statement. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Cavajola. Cav, thanks for jumping on today. Let me allow you to share your screen. And I'm here to help in whatever way I can, but the floor is yours, my friend.
All righty. Do, do, do. Computer is running slow.
You don't have the excuse of Amish internet like I do.
No, no.
All right, we can see everything now, so it looks good from my end.
All right. So what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about the structure of my presentation first, and then go into these actual topics. But this is something that I have been doing, I think, since 2011. And it's a structured presentation, which I call I sell. And again, it's basically how I sell to reduce my clients' chances for medical bankruptcy. Because a lot of you know, I build my whole business around two facts. The first is that medical bills are the number one reason why people file bankruptcy. And the second fact is most of the people filing medical bankruptcy actually have health insurance. And so a lot of this started back in 2011 when my uncle woke up with a sore throat. He figured he had strep throat, went to the doctor. The doctor said, I don't like what I'm seeing in there. Let's do an MRI. And it turned out to be throat cancer. And I watched my uncle go through the battle of his life. Now, his medical bills were well in excess of six figures. His health insurance paid all of it, but I watched my uncle lose his house, his car, his marriage, everything because he couldn't work for 4 months. And I had products I could have sold to him that would have totally changed his whole world. And I never talked to him about it because he had such good insurance. And I realized back then that health insurance is not enough. And so that actually spawned this presentation. And so what I sell is actually a pattern. Do you have to do this pattern? No. It's just the way that I do it. It makes my presentations very structured. I think my customers, they like this because it flows naturally. And so what each one of these stand for is, first of all, the I stands for introduce the process by using the P4L slides. Okay. This is very important because if you do this step correctly, the sale's made in this step. Okay. The second thing you want to do is size up their situation by completing the fact finder. Now, Silas talked about, you can do the fact finder first, then the P4L. You can do the P4L, then the fact finder. Do you guys see this popping on my screen? I think I'm being overrun by a virus. Um, can you guys still hear me? Because I'm froze.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
We can see everything. There, we
Let
now
me,
we see your crash report.
yeah, yeah, something is going on. Yeah, I'm froze, dude, guys. Can you still hear me? I'll try and keep going.
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Okay.
We see the Victory Shield crash report up.
Yeah, and I can't, it's not doing nothing, so my computer is just gone.
Do you want to try to reboot and come back in?
Yeah, let me try and get out and come back in. Give me 5 minutes.
I can fill 5 minutes. No problem.
Okay.
Not sure what I'm going to fill it with, but so one thing I'll go back to very quickly. If you are uh, a tier three or a tier four agent or a sales leader, um, Health Markets has done some pretty incredible things to increase the monetary amount that you can set aside into your Lead Connect account. And this is something specifically that Health Markets did to make sure that top agents have access to their Lead Connect. And so that's what I'm going to take a little bit of time to go over. I think in the national call last week, not that they skimmed over it, but a lot of people just didn't understand the level of investment that Health Markets is making back into our top agents. So starting in April, tier four agents and sales leaders and executive sales leaders can put up to $4,000 into their Lead Connect and get up to $2,000 of lead matching. So that basically doubles the amount that those agents can get into their marketing fund. Tier three agents, it goes up by 1.5 times. So what that means is you can actually increase your contribution up to $3,000 a month, and they'll match you up to $1,500. So those are some pretty sizable enhancements. And many of you, if you're tier two trying to get to tier three, or you're already tier three, you just want to make sure you understand how that works because it's literally free money that Health Markets is giving you on that. I'll try to do a little better job of explaining that and going back through the slides. But it's just another reason that all of you want to climb the tier levels and try to get to tier three or tier four at some point. I'll tell you, most of our tier three and tier four agents, at some point in their career, they were convinced maybe they couldn't get to tier three or tier four, but they did it. And we've got more tier three and tier four agents than we've ever had. So I want to get you all, if you're tier one to tier two, and then if you're tier two, get you to tier three, because there's a lot of additional benefits and enhancements and bonus opportunities and investment opportunities. In addition to that, we have the legacy bonus, which is an additional bonus, or I'm sorry, it's called the rewards bonus, but it's a big bonus, a pool of 1.8 million that we split up every single year too. So just a lot of reasons to continue to improve your business and climb the ladder within the health markets ecosystem. So, Cav, I saw you come back. I don't know if you're here now. There we go. I allowed you to share. You have started sharing. Are you able to speak? You may or may not be muted.
How's that? Better?
Yeah, good.
Sorry about that, guys. That was crazy.
You only took 2 minutes. I actually didn't have time to talk about everything I was going to talk about. So go ahead.
All right. Well, I'll land this plane quickly. All right. So again, just talking about the P4L slides. That's the starting point. Then size up their situation by completing the fact finder. What I do there is I start the fact finder on the phone, and then I complete it in front of them. So I kind of do a hybrid of what Silas said. The E stands for explain their insurance options. The first L stands for let them know they're still exposed. And the last L says stands for let them cover the exposure. And so what I have found that worked very well for me is a lot of times people talk about the SUPs early in the process. And then by the time they get into the health insurance, everyone's just thinking about deductibles, co-pays, stuff. And they kind of forget everything you talked about. And so by moving the conversation about subs after I've already explained the health insurance, I can kind of poke holes in the health insurance and show them how our products can fill those gaps. So first thing we want to talk about though is this P4L process, the positioning statement, because this is something that if you're meeting with a new client, you need to do this and you need to do it well. And one of the things that we have found in SCU is, Silas mentioned the P4L and the fact finder are probably the two most important things we do. And as we've been talking in SCU, we're finding those are the two things people are having the most struggling with. They're not taking the time to do it and they're going right into the presentation. And so, one of the things that this does is this actually sets the stage for what you're going to do so that the presentation just becomes a formality. It's just, okay, now that we know they're going to buy from us if it works for the budget, let's just create the details. So what we're trying to do during this step is, first of all, we're trying to create rapport. Now, rapport is not walking into a house and seeing a fish on the wall saying, hey, do you like to fish? Rapport is actually sharing a mutual perspective. And the way that we can do that is learn how our customers process information, because there's a science called neurolinguistic programming where there's a lot of things in there like mirror and matching and stuff. But one of the most important things is learning how our customers process information, because once you know how they process information, if you give them information the way they process it, you have a much better chance of closing the deal. And so how do people process information? Some people are visual. They understand information through what they observe. They have to see something. They even talk in visual words like it looks to me like, or the way I see it is. And so if all you're doing is talking to someone and they're visual, they're going to have one response at the end. Justin, that sounds really good. Do you have anything you can leave? Okay, because they were nodding their head and everything, but you were talking Chinese to them because they have to look at it. Now, the second group of people are auditory. They comprehend information through what they hear. These people need to see your lips moving. You can, you, and they talk in words like, it sounds to me like, or if I'm hearing you correctly. And then the last group of people are kinesthetic. They grasp information through feelings. You'll know you're with a kinesthetic person because they'll grab the presentation book and pull it closer to you, or they'll pull the computer, or they'll be in your personal space. And so by doing the P4L slides, especially when you're face to face with someone. Now, if you're doing something virtually, you're kind of hitting all these because they can see your screen, all that kind of stuff, unless you're not showing them anything. But I do most of my appointments face to face where they come to my office, I go to them. And so I actually have the P4L slides in a presentation book. And I will literally put that on the table and I can tell within the first 30 seconds which one they are. Because if they're staring at the book when I'm pointing at it, I know they're visual. If I'm pointing at the book and they're staring at my forehead, I need to lean back and realize that they're visual. If they kind of pull the book closer, I know they're kinesthetic. And so just by learning this, you can improve your closing percentage exponentially because you're giving them the information in a way that suits them. Now, the other thing you're doing during the P4L slides or the positioning statement is you build credibility by introducing health markets. Now, why is all this important? Because by reading my prospects and immersing myself in their experiences, I can create rapport and enhance my effectiveness. This is because individuals prefer to engage with those who share similarities, and they're inclined to trust a company that demonstrates reliability. And so the very first thing I'm doing with the P4L slides is I'm learning how they're building or how they process information, and I'm building credibility by introducing health markets. Okay. So I'm going to run through my P4L slides again. There's 100 different ways you can do this. Silas, like you said on YouTube, there's 4 different P4Ls and everybody does it differently. There's no right way to do it. But I'm not going to do my presentation. I'm just going to tell you why I think each slide is important and how you can use it to your advantage. So when I'm meeting with someone, either virtually, because this is what they're going to see if it's virtual, um, or if I have my presentation book and I just have it sitting on the table, this is what they're seeing first. And this is where I kind of do my introduction into the positioning statement, where I'll say, Silas, thank you for taking the time meeting with me today. As a licensed agent, I'm required to introduce myself and the company to you. So I just want to take a few moments to do that. Is that okay? Yes, okay. So then the first thing I do is I introduce Health Markets. They're recognized as one of the largest independent agencies in the country. We have over 3,000 reps nationwide. We currently have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Again, what I'm doing is I'm letting these people know they're dealing with a big company. Okay. The second thing is I introduce the insurance companies and I just say, because we're an independent agency, we have access to several of the nation's top rated companies. And the benefit to you is I'm not going to pigeonhole you into 1 or 2 companies because that's all I offer. I'm going to find the right company for your situation. Again, credibility. Then I tell a little bit about me. Again, I have over 25 years experience. I'm licensed in Indiana and Michigan. The 5 lines of business we handle is health, life, Medicare, income protection, disability products, long-term care. This is very, very important because I'll have people that say, "Oh, you do life insurance? Oh, you do Medicare?" In other words, I'm setting the stage for the fact that I'm not just a health insurance guy. Okay. And then I tell them this on the phone, but then I reinforce it here. Again, there is no cost for my services. I get compensated by the insurance company if we find something that works for you. And I just tell people, so my motivation is very clear. I want to take good care of you so you stay with me for a long time and you'll share me with your friends and family and you'll give me a good review on Google. Guys, I'm setting the stage for a relationship. I'm not there to sell them something. I'm there to create a relationship. We're in a residual income business. I'm not in a transactional business. I'm in a relationship business. And so I'm letting them know here's all the different things we do. There's no cost. I'm going to be here to help you. I want you to share me with your friends and family, and I want to walk alongside you. Okay. So I'm setting the stage for the relationship. Then I go into this slide and I just say, and the other thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the high cost of healthcare because a lot of people have heard medical bills are the #1 reason why people file bankruptcy. But what a lot of people don't know is that most of the people filing medical bankruptcy have health insurance. And there's 2 reasons that's causing that. The first one is most Americans live paycheck to paycheck. And so if you get really sick, not only are you going to have medical bills, but you're going to start having these questions. How are we going to cover the day to day if one of us gets sick? How long can we afford to be with one of us out of work? Can we pay our deductible without going into debt? These questions become very real when you get sick because it's all about lost income. The second one is life insurance, which is the ultimate loss of income. Again, most people don't have enough life insurance. Most people don't have enough savings to cover stuff. And so a very important question comes is what happens if a breadwinner died today? What's that going to do to your family financially? In other words, I'm setting the stage for SUPS and life right at the beginning. And then to me, this is the most important slide. Because I say here now at Health Markets, we feel there's 3 primary components people are going to need to reduce their chance of medical bankruptcy. First of all, it starts with a good health plan to take care of the doctors and hospitals. But then some people are going to benefit from what's called supplemental income in case you can't work, you protect your savings, or the ultimate loss of income is we got to make sure that you have enough life insurance. But again, this slide is so important, guys, because again, I've said this before, but I think a lot of people in our business, they approach it this way. We have health insurance, we have supplements, and we have life insurance, and they're disconnected. My whole presentation is if you want to reduce your chance of medical bankruptcy, they're all connected. So when I start talking about supplements later, they're not asking me why. When I start talking about life insurance later, they're not saying, this is a health insurance point. Why are you bringing up life insurance? Because this page right here shows them that all three are necessary to reduce the chance of medical bankruptcy. And so, how do we do it? Very simple. In a few moments, I'm going to ask you a few questions so I can better understand your needs. And then you're literally going to help me custom design a plan around your needs and, more importantly, your budget. Now, if we can do that, tell me yes, and we'll figure out where to go from there. But if we can't, tell me no, you're not going to hurt my feelings. And then I ask them, Justin, do you have any problems telling me no? And if I don't think we're a good fit, are you going to be okay with me letting you know that I don't think we're a good fit? Guys, if you do this positioning statement correctly, the sale's done right here. Because if they agree to tell you, yes, if we can design a plan around your needs and budget, everything else is just details now. And that's one of the things Alex Wartentile, who is the #1 agent in the history of our company, says the sale is made in the positioning statement. If you do this correctly, now it doesn't mean everyone's going to buy from you because maybe we can't create something that meets their needs and fits their budget. But if we can do that, people will buy the health insurance, the subs, and maybe the life. So before I go into the fact finder, Silas, do you have anything you want to add to this?
I would only say I think you need to practice this positioning statement. And I think you'll probably need to have multiple versions of it. I have one that's a little bit more robust if I'm doing it in a place where I can have my slideshow presentation up. I also have a verbal, just completely verbal version of this that might be just a couple of minutes long, right? I think you
Mhm.
practice it different ways, and you've got to react to your client a little bit and read them a little bit to figure out, how in depth do I need to go in this? How much education do I need to give them? Do they understand this? I would also say this positioning statement is not something that you're going to use every time you engage with a client, right? I would say
Only new
this is
people. New
this is
people.
new people coming in that you're setting the stage for things. I would also say, on something like a live transfer. I mean, what Justin teaches and what we've trained as far as scripting on live transfers, there's still a positioning statement embedded in that, but it's a little different sequence on live transfers than it is if you're face to face or if you're via Zoom with the consumer. So, there's got to be different ways and different versions and different tweaks that you put on this depending on the circumstances and the situation. But a good positioning statement, in my opinion, is who are you? Who's the organization that you represent? What are your capabilities? And then what are a few things that a client should understand, like just fundamental things that they should understand before you get into the details of, your expert recommendations. So practice it. You can use Zoom, you can use Loom, you can use a VHS recording camera if you want, like I did 20 years ago to record it in your parents' living room. So you can watch it back. But I do think there is something to recording it and watching it back because you're going to be your own best or worst critic on figuring out, did that make sense? Did it flow well? Were my transitions good? Do I sound like I know what I'm talking about? That's something you can do again and again and again and hone and refine really, really well. So that would be my
And again, Silas, would you agree that if this is taking more to 5 to 10 minutes, you're talking way too much?
100%. I think you
Yeah,
get
this
to
has got to
70
be it's got to
minutes.
be concise.
Yep, exactly. Cutting to the chase. And I actually ask clients for permission to do this in the beginning.
Mhm.
When I'm sitting down with them, I'm like, hey, I'd like to go over a couple of things that I think you should understand. I like to do this with all of my clients the first time I engage with them. Is it okay if we take a few minutes for me to kind of set the stage here a little bit? And they're like, oh, yeah, absolutely. So then you're going into who are you, who's the organization, and just kind of working your way through this. If you just jump in with no context and no like foundational understanding, you're going to find that people have trouble following you and understanding what you're even talking about. So this is the right way, I think, to do it.
Yeah, and I agree. That's why the way I do it is I tell them I'm required to do it. as a licensed agent, I'm required to introduce the company and myself to you. So can I take a few minutes to do that? And I've never had anyone tell me no. Because Silas is right. You pull something out and put it on the table, they're going to be like, okay, here comes the sales pitch, and they're gonna and all their sudden their defense mechanisms are going to go up. But when you say, hey, I want to introduce the company, again, remember lie, steal, lie, and hide. All right, I need to learn about this dude. Okay, I need to find holes in the chinks in the armor so I can start giving them all my smoke screens. And the beautiful thing about doing this correctly is when they get done, they're like, I like this company. I like this guy. I like what I never even thought about medical bankruptcy, you
It's
know?
just context. And, I
Yeah.
think about the same thing when you're working leads, like earlier in the sales process. That's one of the reasons why I try to get many of you to the point where you run solely on referrals. I mean, that's the ultimate goal here. Because again, that person who is referred to you coming into that conversation, coming into this positioning statement, they have a different level of context about who you are and what you do, and a different respect for you than someone who doesn't have that context. I think this is the second opportunity in that sales process to build the context and give them a reason to understand you and like you. And I mean, it's really foundational in everything that we do. And if you're skipping this, I think you're absolutely like blowing it up. This
You're
is
shooting yourself in the foot by
yeah,
not taking this
100%.
seriously.
And
Yeah.
you mentioned Alex Wertenthal earlier. I will tell you, I don't know how many times I've heard him say this. If you guys go on the YouTube channel under the Summer Speaker Series, we actually have an interview with Alex Wertenthal. I think he's written over what, 15, 16, 17 million FYCRs with this organization.
And
Number
he
one
was the
measurement.
number one rep this year.
Well, and what he will say is he said everything starts with the positioning statement. It is the single most important thing that we do in the sales process. I mean, he's even more adamant about it than Cav or I am, and he sold a hell of a lot more than neither one of us have over the years. So
We could add ours together and we're still like 10 million short of him.
that's pretty astounding. But go watch it. I mean, I'm not lying to you. Go watch Alex Wertenthal's interview.
Or to put it in perspective, Kevin McIntyre wrote 1 million this year. Alex beat him by 600,000. It's just, and again, he does it all by himself too. So when people say, Steve, you do this by yourself, no, go look at Alex Mortentile. That's just freaking amazing that you can write that much business by yourself. So,
And
all
he's
right.
a really good person. I mean, that's what makes it even cooler. He's just a really great person. So.
Yep. Yep. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the fact finder. So, like I said, the way that I do it is when I set the appointment, I'm gathering all the demographics on the phone, a date of birth, age, all that kind of stuff. Or I've collected it through Retire Flow. But when I'm actually meeting with them, here's when I size up the situation by completing the fact finder. It's basically page 3, which is called the needs analysis. Again, if you learn how to do this page correctly, you will gather all the information you need to build a plan that's going to fit their needs. Okay. And again, just I'm not throwing my SCU buddies under the bus, but a lot of them are like, I don't take this very seriously. I just kind of buzz through it if I even do it at all. And it's again, Silas, what's your thing? How can you prescribe without diagnosing what's going on? But if you actually take the time to learn about their situation, the solution you're going to present to them is going to make total sense to them because it's based on what they told you. And so the first section is just kind of review their current health plan. Now, again, when people are coming into our world, I don't really care about the insurance companies because it's, I mean, we have three companies to choose from in Indiana. You got a few more in Michigan, but what I like to know is instead of their insurance company, and so I don't act I use the questions on here for prompts. You can follow it to a T, whatever works for you. But when I see this first thing for insurance company, I want to gather two pieces of information. Number one, what kind of health insurance are they used to? Are they used to copay plans? Are they used to high deductible plans? Are they used to HSA plans? Because once I know what plan they're used to, that's what I'm going to show them when we actually go over the health insurance. But the other thing I want to know is I want to know their hospital of, I don't care about their doctors right now. I want to know if something bad happens to you, what hospital do you want to go to? So that when I show them the health insurance, I'm going to show them the most affordable plan where they can go to that hospital. Now, over in your guys' area, I'm talking east, Ambetter's Silas, is Ambetter still pretty much the go-to plan over there?
Not so much anymore. I would say the big issue is that they don't have bronze plans anymore, right? So
Right.
their network is great, but we've been going a lot of Anthem. I did more Anthem than anything else.
Right.
Boy.
Yeah, so over in my area, it really does depend on where you want to go because we have the Anthem plan that works with like Northwest Health, which is LaPorte, Valpo. They work with South Bend. CareSource works for Franciscan, and then Ambetter works with everybody. So again, it's just I kind of want to know where they go. And then, why are you looking for coverage at this time? I kind of want to write down what their do they have a special enrollment right now? Am I going to have to look at off exchange plans? Um, but that's all I really gather in the first section, just because that's all I feel I need. If you want to ask all these, go for it. You got to figure out your own rhythm in this, okay? But I just want to know what kind of health insurance are you used to, where do you want to go, and do you have an or special enrollment or not? And then I go into the health questions. Do you have a history of cancer, heart attack, stroke, diabetes, other chronic illnesses like sleep apnea, major asthma, irritable bowel, whatever? Just to kind of, I'm, I'm not actually looking at this stuff for the health insurance. I mean, I do if they don't have a special enrollment to get in the ACA, then these matter. But I'm actually looking at these questions more for the supplemental products. In other words, if I find someone's a diabetic, I just know I'm going to show them guaranteed issue GRIC products. If I see they're totally healthy, then I can show them pretty much anything I want. And so I'm really looking at these not so much for the health insurance unless they do not have a special, if they don't have a special enrollment, then yeah, if they have health problems, I'm going to have to go with a guaranteed issue. Golden Rule has that guaranteed issue hospital plan, stuff like that. But again, I'm just gathering the information to see, do I need to go GI or is everything on the table? Okay. Now, when it comes to the supplemental portion, if a major illness or injury caused you to miss work, how long would you be able to continue to pay your monthly bills without income? That's a phenomenal question if someone's working. That question means absolutely nothing to someone who's 62 and they're bridging the gap between retirement and Medicare. And so what I have just learned to do so I can just deal with anyone is I just simply say, look, a few minutes ago we talked about medical bankruptcy. Do you have any type of income protection like Aflac disability? And I'll just write no income protection because that answer is going to help me sell subs down the road. And then I'll ask them, hey, are you interested in dental or vision? And I kind of stop there. I don't do the life insurance at this point. I do that at the end of the presentation. We'll talk about that in a few weeks. But literally, that's my needs analysis. It's very quick. So what I'm trying to do is I assess their existing health plan type and their preferred hospital. I examine their health history over the past 5 years. And with the introduction of medical bankruptcy, I will determine if they have any income protection products. And then I find out if they're interested in dental and vision, because if they're not, I'm not going to show them a dental and vision quote. If they are, I'm going to show them a dental and vision quote. And that's pretty much how I size up the situation. Like I said, there's 100 different ways to do this. This is not the way to do it. This is the way I do it. Now, Silas, what do you have? Again, is there a different approach you take with this or?
No, I mean, I would say the one thing that I have is I have Megan, my executive assistant, scheduling the majority of my appointments. So she's doing a lot more information gathering on the phone. And a lot of that fact finding process is done, early in the process for me. Part of how I've built my practice is I want to be like a doctor or like a dentist, where I can come into a client meeting, I can take 3 or 4 minutes and review all of the information that has already been gathered by my team and my staff and walk in and have an intelligent conversation. So a lot of the fact finding in my process is actually done not by me, but before I get there. Now I'm going to clarify things, get additional information, make sure I understand their situation, really dive into it. The other thing that I'd say about fact finding, though, is that this is both an offensive and a defensive move, right? Offensive because you've got to diagnose before you prescribe. There's no way you can even begin to make a recommendation for somebody unless you understand their situation. And I talk to clients like that. I'll tell them that I feel like the work that I do is very much like that of a medical practitioner and that I have to diagnose before I prescribe. I want to understand things before I even begin to try to put together a solution for whatever your issues might be. Clients love that when you say that, right? It just really positions you as a subject matter expert and as a true consultant. But I'd also say that this fact finding process is also very defensive because if you're in this business long enough, you will eventually have a complaint filed against you. Hopefully, it's just a complaint with the carrier and we can resolve it with information and a rebuttal. But it's possible that it's the Department of Insurance or the Attorney General or some CMS that's actually received a complaint about something that you've done. I will tell you, I've been involved in a lot of complaints and mitigating those complaints over the last 25 years. And I promise you, if you document things well and appropriately, both in a fact finder and then through a CRM tool where you're keeping track of engagements, interactions, time and date stamping things. And when someone says, hey, they didn't say this, they didn't do this, and you can say, yes, I did. And here's my documentation. Here's my visual documentation. If you can produce visual documentation, the vast majority of the time, you're going to skate through that complaint with no issues. And I've seen that happen many, many times. The people who don't get through that unscathed are people who don't have the right documentation, didn't ask the right questions, didn't have a good process, just threw a solution to somebody without doing an appropriate fact-finding experience, all of those things. The other thing that I'll say, one last thing, and then I'll turn it back over to you, Cav, is that on that fact finder, I think you got to think about trying to build that fact finder and that process in a way that it's like I remember Rochelle Wertentile, who was Alex Wertentile, the number one agent in the country. It was his mother. And she was one of the top trainers and leaders in the organization for the first 10, 12 years of my career. And I remember her saying this, that a good fact-finding experience should be like a good date. And if I say to you, I mean, many of us, I haven't dated in 30 years, but when I think about what a good date is, it means we're engaged. We're like listening to each other. We're communicating well. We're looking each other in the eye. We're having a good, robust conversation, right? And I think that's kind of what you want to try to create with that. You don't want it to be like a military inquisition, right? You don't want to like be pounding them with questions about things, but you want to set it up in a way that it is a good conversation and that you're digging deep and you're going down rabbit holes that they open. I think, things, asking questions around family medical history. And then when you find out that their mom or their dad or their brother was diagnosed with cancer, asking a few questions about that. Asking, when were they diagnosed? What was the treatment? Have they survived it? Like getting them talking about some of those things that we're going to try to help them understand the risk around is really important in that fact-finding process. So I think if you can look at it through that lens of that this needs to be like a good date, and try to do that, I think you're not always going to land in a perfect place on it, but I do think that definitely helps like set the stage for what that fact-finding experience should really be. Is that what you're looking for, Kev?
Sure.
Sure.
So I mean, I really don't have a whole lot to add to that other than just again, if I hope you have heard loud and clear that the positioning statement and the fact finder are way more important than your actual presentation. And if you will start practicing and working on it and just kind of, figuring out what are the things that you want to gather to help you provide the solution that you want to provide. And also, guys, I think if you just quit trying to sell people health insurance, because they don't need you for health insurance. If you start looking at this in terms of protecting people from medical bankruptcy or protecting people from financial ruin, you'll change the way you do this. Because again, my my uncle's health plan, his covered pretty much all of his medical bills and he lost everything. So if
I
all
also
you're doing is being an enroller for someone and get them in a health plan, they're still one illness away from losing everything.
I also think how you do that. I think about the positioning statement or the protection for life and the fact finder. The beautiful thing about it is these are tools that you have that you can practice and you can become this is something you control. How good are you at the fact finder and how good are you at a positioning statement? That's something you can practice again and again and again and just dial it in. Become like awesome at that positioning statement and awesome at that fact finding experience. And I think there's a lot of different ways you can actually do the fact finder. I would absolutely say to start with the health markets fact finder, whether it's the digital version, whether it's a handwritten, paper version that you can get from Marketing on Demand. You can also do it through the Agent Connect platform. So you can go in, log into Agent Connect and start a fact finder there and do a fact finder in there, and it'll link back to the CRM from there. So there's a lot of different ways you can do it. But as you begin to evolve, there may be some additional questions you want to ask. Maybe you want to ask questions in a little bit different fashion. I think one of the most important questions that you can ask in this fact-finding experience is around their financial situation. I tell clients, I'm like, I know very little about your actual financial situation, but if you were unable to work for an extended period of time because of a major illness or a major accident, how long could you survive financially without revenue and income coming in? I mean, figuring out, do you have an emergency fund or not? And if you don't have an emergency fund, what can we do to protect you from financial ruin? I mean, those are all like part of that conversation. That good date is kind of setting the stage for that a little bit. And I think if you follow that process and you get really, really good at it, the client will recognize that you're very good at this, and you won't stumble and you won't look like a rookie, and it'll get better and better every single time you do it. So,
Yeah, and they'll also feel like, wow, this guy's not trying to sell me. This guy's trying to help me because he's building something around things I told him I needed. And it's
right.
just, and
If you
that's
deliver
how you build that relationship.
If you can deliver a solution to problems that you help the client self-identify, I mean, I really feel like that's part of our role, especially through that fact finder, is to pull things out, to help clients self-identify needs that they didn't even know they had before they met you, right? People are thinking, coming in thinking, I just need to buy health insurance so that I check the box. But when you start digging a little deeper and saying, as Gary Boberhoff mentions, the Affordable Care Act made it much more affordable for people to buy insurance because of the federal government subsidies, but much less affordable for people to use the insurance. And in most situations, if somebody has a major illness or even an emergency room visit, they're probably going to be hitting their out-of-pocket maximum around $10,000. So if you have to come up with $10,000 in a bad year, what resource do you have to pull that from? Do you have that a resource? Or do we need to use supplemental insurance to create that emergency fund in the moment to help fill those gaps? Make sure that if you're not working for a couple of days or a couple of weeks, you've got money to be able to survive that. I mean, those are just the conversations that I think a subject matter expert and a true consultant should be asking and would be asking, of any consumer that they're trying to help and walk through. So it's not like we're trying to oversell something. It's that we're trying to protect them from medical bankruptcy, like Cav says. And I think you've got to figure out for yourself. Each one of you needs to own this. I mean, I would tell you, we give you a script, we give you slides, we give you all that, but you need to go in and you need to make it your own. That's how you're going to get good at it. A lot of times I have agents that say, "Hey, I've tweaked this a little bit." I'm like, "Great, tweak it, make it your own, make it how you would want to be presented to." I would also say that this fact finder and the positioning statement should be a constant work in progress. I feel like for 25 years I've been constantly honing and refining these two things. They've never been perfect, and they've changed a lot over the years. I know calves have changed a lot over the years too. It's not exactly the same that it was 10 years ago. Now, it's the same process, it's the same concept, but how I'm delivering it, my transitions from one point to the next, new stories that I integrate in, new experiences that I've had or that I've witnessed clients have are getting woven into the conversation. I mean, that's where it becomes like a living, breathing tool that you should be honing and refining as time goes on. This is one thing you've got to get really, really good at. It's fact finding and a positioning statement. And if you don't feel like you're really, really, really good at that yet, the beautiful thing is you can start practicing right now and spend the next 3 hours working on it, right? Cliff Carthauser talks a lot about working on your business as opposed to working in your business. And this would be two tools that I'd say you need to work on until they're really, really dialed in. So, any final thoughts, Gav?
Yeah, I mean, a couple things. You're right. My process hasn't changed. I've been doing I sell for over a decade now. What I say during each step has changed just because the business has evolved. Okay. But the other thing too that I want to point out is if you haven't figured it out yet, the real secret to this business is the sub products. It is the life insurance because, like I said earlier, they don't need us for health insurance. But I find it very difficult to talk to people about protecting themselves from medical bankruptcy when I haven't protected my family from medical bankruptcy. And I think the very first thing that you guys need to do is if you don't have these products on yourself, because last I checked, you're self-employed, so I can pretty much figure out if you're not working, you're not making any money. So even if it's a $10,000 accident wise, 10,000, because people will ask you, well, Sandra, how much of this do you have on yourself? And when you say I don't, you just shot your foot off. I'm always my first client when new products come out that I think is going to benefit my family.
Yep.
I'm also my very best customer because I never complain about anything. Okay. But again, it's one of those things where I just look at this and it's like, I saw what my uncle went through, so I have protected my family. I know Silas has protected his family because guys, we're all just one illness away from losing everything. And so, you want to learn how to do the application, write an application on yourself. Okay. But if you don't even see the need to get it on yourself, how in the world can you tell other people they need the same thing? So that's just my little soapbox.
You can't. You
You
can't. I
can't.
mean, you just can't. And I would tell you too. I mean, I would say one of my most powerful, two of my most powerful like closing techniques are let me tell you what I did on my own family, or let me tell you what I did for my parents. Like if it's over 65, right? I mean, I can't tell you how many clients come in, they're like, hey, am I still doing the same thing your parents are? I'm like, yeah, you're still good. Like, so that just gives people tremendous comfort that if I did it for myself or if I did it for my parents, that's where they want to be. And I will tell you that's a big, big thing. And if you don't own it, you got to own it. So, last thought I have is that if you are working through this positioning statement, and you want to record it and send it to me, I would be happy to critique it for you and give you insights and thoughts. I'll find something you can work on, I'm sure. But I'll try to be kind with it. But I think that's one of the greatest things you can do is record it several times until you feel like this is a good positioning statement that I just did right here. It flowed well. I felt comfortable with it. And then send it to your sales leader. Send it to me. Any of you in the call, if you send it to me, I promise you that I will listen to it. I will watch it and I will give you input on what you can do to continue to hone it and refine it. I think that's a really great way to practice things. And I don't think you're going to send me your first version because it's probably going to be your worst version, right? So you're going to practice it a couple of times, send something that's, that you're proud of and see, see what feedback we have for you, because I think that's something that you can always be working on. So, well, I know we're over the top of the hour, so I'm gonna let everybody roll this morning. I appreciate y'all being here. If you got to be out today, I know roads are a little crazy around here. Our school got canceled today, so I do have some kids at home. Fortunately, they're not toddlers anymore. They can fend for themselves. But I hope you all have a great week. For those of you in Indiana, I'll really look forward to seeing you on Friday night at our event down here in Indiana. If you have any questions about anything, don't hesitate to reach out this week, though. Take care, everybody. Thank you.